Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with me, Kevin Britz, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, where we aim to add value to people's lives. You can catch us live every Wednesday and Thursday at lunchtime on ebizradio.com and all your major podcast channels today. If you are seeing this and you are listening to this, I want to challenge you to add value to someone's life, because we certainly need more people to add value and to be kinder to one another. And with this in mind, in today's marketing leadership segment, joining us as per usual, marketing and communications expert and co-host Craigpagelee. Craig, how you doing?
Kevin, I'm great, thank you. Yeah, good to be chatting again, and what a wonderful day to be chatting with excitement in your life from the arrival of a couple of boxes of books from Amazon.
Yeah, like officially, the book has arrived. I'm like, we've got it. It's here, and I'm more like taken by what it means. Like now that it's here in my hands, I'm going, this is such a big day for me. I've even put it on my personal Instagram to kind of remind me of the day I received the book I wrote. It's a really big read. Like, it's wow. And I'm like, I wanted to quote Barbara Walters, famous for her daytime talk show called The View. She said, never miss the opportunity to blatantly promote yourself. So I am currently
I like that.
doing just that, guys. So the book's going to be out. Currently, it's in soft copy, and it will be in stores probably early in 2024. But it will be online and available in Takealot, or order on Takealot, and also Amazon. And that will be happening in the next couple of weeks. As soon as that happens, I'm definitely sharing that, and I will make sure everyone knows about the fact that the book's available online to purchase.
Cool. Kevin, just
Craig,
whilst we're chatting, I just want to caution that I've got a really bad bout of the dreadful flu that's going around, so battling a bit with a scratchy throat, so every now and then you may hear a bit of a cough or pause for me to just gather my voice again. So hopefully not too many interruptions today.
Yes, I know that it's been a couple of days already that you're struggling. So listeners, please mind the coughing if there is any. Craig, so I'm jumping straight into today's show. We had a really interesting conversation last week about the great gloom. Don't you want to recap on that for us? Because guys, if you haven't heard that, I mean, it's not a well-known phenomenon just yet. But if you go to some of the corporates, if you go and see, if you are working in a corporate environment, you certainly start seeing some of the signs, and that's what we chatted about last week. Craig, if you can.
Perfect, thanks, Kevin. So I want to reference the LinkedIn article titled "Great Gloom Follows Great Resignation with Unhappy Employees" for our key reminder points. The article was written by Lynn Williams and was published on the 5th of October 2023, so really topical, relevant content. So the article notes a couple of key takeaways for HR professionals. Firstly, employee happiness reached an all-time low in June 2023, coming out of COVID even lower than the moments we came out of COVID. HR employees should use data-driven approaches to measure employee happiness through the anonymous surveys and NPS scores. HR professionals can play a crucial role in improving employee engagement by setting clear goals, providing recognition, and having meaningful conversations with employees to minimize the great gloom effect. Resilient companies should focus on workforce agility, capability, diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives, should listen to employees' views, should offer flexible work arrangements, and should provide training and career development programs. And ultimately, Kevin, employers may need to shift their focus from perks to strategies emphasizing employee strengths and goals to improve engagement effectively. The article also notes the following key takeaways for employers. If you're an employer and don't want to lose valuable employees, consider what moves you can make internally to improve employee happiness. A study by SHRM notes that, take note, the average hire cost in the USA is almost $4,700, and the average workplace learning cost is only $1,280 per employee. And it obviously makes sense to ensure employee happiness and retain and train staff as opposed to replacing staff. Another article we reference notes that employees are no longer riding the highs and lows of their roles, but instead have shifted to a resignation and apathy mind states. And the true problem with this employee engagement isn't a lack of motivation, Kevin, but a disconnect between the employee and the organization's purpose. And Kevin, employees have to ensure that the very reason the organization exists is clearly defined and that its values resonate with the employees' personal values and belief system. If not, there will always be an alignment gap and levels of disengagement will continue to rise. And those are the key reminder points from last week.
Fantastic, guys. If you want to check it out, it's a great room. Will be on the YouTube channel and all your major podcast channels under the Lunchtime series. Craig, so what are we going to be discussing today?
Kevin, I did a lot of investigation to see if I could find any specific reference on last week's topic in relation to the creative and communications industry, as there really is a lot of pressure on this sector as well. And as a dynamic and fun industry as it may seem to be, there definitely is a lot of misalignment of shared value, not just between employees and agencies they work for, but also between the agencies and the clients they service. Unfortunately, there were no specific references, but there were a lot of articles that actually spoke to the topic of a connection between creativity and employee engagement. So I thought that this would be a great topic for today's conversation.
And unashamedly, guys, creativity is part of the book that I've just written. So, I mean, interestingly enough, guys, I mean, Craig, tell us more about the connection between creativity and employment.
Kevin, thanks. So the article titled Creativity in the Workplace, How to Bolster Engagement and Productivity at Work, provides some great context to the topic. And the article was written by three folk, Janessa Pong, Sekul Krastev, and Sarah Kurdley, and hopefully I've got the pronunciations right there. The article was published to thedecisionlab.com on September 13th September 2022, so just over a year old. The article opens with the following paragraph, Kevin. Businesses that employees identify as miserable at work make 23% less profit than businesses with engaged employees. Oh, wow. However, only 15% of the world's workforce feels engaged at work. So there's a big problem there. Something is clearly wrong with the way we structure work, and the science points towards a lack of creativity as a core reason. The article then gets into some in-depth analysis on how organizations need to consider employees' psychological needs when assessing workplace culture and how to reignite creativity in the workplace. And the latter point here, we note the following, Kevin. To bring engagement back into the workforce requires a genuine effort to reform culture. Our current working culture hasn't adapted to major shifts in the past decade, like technical growth, improved quality of life, and increasing educational standards. If we want to solve this crisis, we will need to fulfill our basic psychological needs by evaluating three principles: creativity, fairness, and purposeful work. And Kevin, with the work that you deliver, and obviously with this great book that you've published now, I'm sure the last sentence is something you've got a really great point of view on.
Well, Craig, I'm so you use the word miserable, right? So when you consider when employees are miserable and it affects your ROI and your turnover and your income by like that amount, 23% is not, that's a lot of money, right?
It is.
But if you look at creativity, what creativity does do, and it becomes an intrinsic motivator. So if you're looking at intrinsic motivation, that looks at 6 human needs, right? So creativity creates variety. And if you're creating variety and you're connecting and you're collaborating, which are the actual human fundamental needs that we need, it speaks directly to why employees become more engaged and more intrinsically motivated from a self-engaged perspective, right? So it makes so much sense when you start hearing, how an environment's output and the exchange of what they're doing can impact an environment based on creativity, because what you're actually doing is you're actually creating an environment for people to start thriving.
Yes.
And when you see that as an employer, you have obvious engagement from employees. It becomes like and you'll start seeing engagement to such a level. You'll go like, I don't even know why they're engaged, but what you're actually doing is your collaboration and connecting people. You're meeting variety as a human need. And it's stuff that we can't get past, right? And creativity can even move into a growth space, another human need that really helps people intrinsically move forward. So I mean, like that's like, it's like a no-brainer from my perspective. And I'm like, you see it like that in number format, and you're going, it literally impacts, how well the business is doing or how badly a business is doing. It's quite concerning. So I'm glad that we've brought this into this conversation. It's really fantastic.
Yes. And I'm definitely going to expand on the very principle you've just alluded to as well in a short while here. But and it builds out of the very next point here, where the article references the concept of self-determination theory, SDT, which in essence is a reconstruction of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it focuses on the focus around three basic psychological needs of competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And before uncovering these three needs in a bit more detail, I just want to set some context for the listeners on what self-determination theory is. Kevin, according to Wikipedia, self-determination theory is a macro theory of human motivation, which you mentioned, and personality that concerns people's innate growth tendencies and innate physical needs. It pertains to the motivation, exactly as you alluded to, behind people's choices in the absence of external influences and distractions. Self-determination theory focuses on the degree to which human behavior is self-motivated and self-determined. And I really, really like that definition. And based on this, I can definitely see the relevance of how this concept actually applies to the workplace, Kevin.
Yeah, and that's such I'm like, I love that you brought that in there, because it lends itself to Albert Bandura's research around confidence. And we look at confidence and how to cultivate confidence. It speaks to the self-determination theory, where he speaks about your self-efficacy and your self-talk, right? And when you hear those two, you kind of go, you can be a very self-determined individual when you know that the self-efficacy of what your competency looks like is capable and obvious, and you can do what you can do because you know you can do the job. But second to that, that self-determination, that self-confidence within yourself really speaks to how you speak to yourself, right?
That's
so
fantastic.
It's a really amazing connection that self-determination theory works into this. I love this.
Great. So I want to just look at the meaning behind those three needs, Kevin. So we feel competent when we actually feel capable of doing things well. And here, deprivation within the workplace can look like being micromanaged, too much bureaucracy, or being assigned tedious tasks with no real challenge or meaning. Autonomy, the second need, dictates that we feel in control of our own actions without external motivation. Deprivation means not being able to pursue our own ideas and instead being forced to execute commands without creative liberty. And the third need, relatedness, is fulfilled when we feel included in a healthy community. Sitting in cubicles, eating separately and feeling isolated from your colleagues can deprive us of relatedness. And there's a wonderful quote that referenced the importance of these three needs, Kevin, and it reads as follows: "These are the food and water of your psychological well-being. They argue that things like self-esteem ultimately serve as hollow replacements, and that chasing them can be counterintuitive to our well-being. We often try to solve problems backwards, resulting in dissatisfaction. Working towards competence, autonomy, and relatedness is what accrues self-esteem as a byproduct."
What stands out about that, what you've just shared with us, Craig, is we speak about autonomy, and the second part to that speaks to deprivation, and it's so interesting that those two are used in the sentiment of how do you really get people to buy in and work with, and cultivate a culture where you want to be motivated and doing stuff. So when you have autonomy, it means you do feel fulfilled and you have the ability to make decisions. But the opposite of that is the deprivation of being allowed to make decisions.
Yes.
A very strong sentiment, and it's quite interesting that that's what shows up. It's fascinating.
And how the deprivation characteristic comes into all three of those needs.
Yeah. So not meeting these needs obviously has a negative impact on the workplace. So what role does creativity play in mitigating this, Craig?
Yeah, Kevin, so there's a lot of content and many studies on the topic, including some great references in your book. But the one critical point that really stood out for me for all the wrong reasons across many of the articles that I skimmed over is that, to quote, creativity in the workplace counteracts productivity. And fortunately, the article references research that counters this point of view, with the findings noting that a lack of creativity is actually directly responsible for downturn in employee performance. The research notes the adoption of the self-determination theory and embedding creativity broadly across the entire organization. The three basic physical needs we've been referencing then all have a positive effect on increasing productivity. And employees are driven in the following ways. Going back to need one, autonomy, employees are able to sit there and note that I decide what I do today and how I do it. The power of competence in self there is I'm being trusted to do what I believe is right. And from a relatedness point of view is they trust me to figure out my own tasks. They must respect me. And as we learned today, our psychological needs, when our psychological needs are met, we definitely feel engaged and can be more productive. But when we look at the motivation behind our choices in the workplace, we note that creativity boosts, to reference your earlier point, intrinsic motivation and not extrinsic motivation. And again, Kevin, just to quickly set some context to the terms there, according to Wikipedia, intrinsic motivation comes from within the individual and is driven by internal factors like employment, curiosity, sense of fulfillment, and occurs when people pursue an activity for its own sake. Whereas on the other hand, extrinsic motivation is based on external factors like rewards obtained by completing an activity, money, hierarchical commands, or peer pressure. And the key difference between these two is based on the source of the origin of motivation.
Craig, you know what's interesting about the intrinsic intrinsic motivation is I always when doing training, I pose the question, is knowledge power? And invariably everyone goes, yes, it is. And I'm like, no, it's not. The only time knowledge is power is when there's someone's taking action to the knowledge, right? And that speaks to, again, the intrinsic motivation. So as much knowledge, and so many people have that. So many people have great ideas. So many people have like stuff that they could potentially do and things and dreams they could potentially have, but they don't take action on it.
Yeah, they don't pursue it, as it notes there, exactly that.
An intrinsic kind of process, right? So the moment you do start doing that, writing a book, like doing this, like it's so intrinsically motivating for me to kind of go, okay, cool. If you could do that, then what else can you do, right? And it sort of hangs that question in your head. So I think, like, you know, from an intrinsic and extrinsic positioning, it's really starts speaking to how you can actually tap into how to feel yourself more actively and take action on the things instead of just dreaming about them. And it's like what we've been doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, I'm like, but I mean, Craig, one of the interesting questions here is like, how does can marketing actually improve employee engagement? Because that can be quite a useful tool, I think.
Yeah, very much so. Again, there's a lot of different angles that have come into this. There's some key articles around marketing-focused organizations and some of the internal dynamics that can come through in that regard. But I came across an article titled "How Marketing Can Help Your Employees' Engagement Efforts." It was written by Raman Edmund and published on bloggaggleamp.com on the 29th of March this year, again, fairly recent. And the article addresses 3 very simple approaches on how marketing can boost employee engagement. And the first approach is internal communication, something we talk about often. You know, your internal communications must compete for an employee's attention. And applying the tactics and tools of marketing to your internal communications makes them more compelling, more interesting, and far more memorable. So a really simple proposition. You know, the way you put your efforts into external marketing, apply it to internal marketing. You want the same success as you expect with, you know, engaging clients and consumers externally. You want to be able to deliver the same contact and connection with relevant information internally. The second approach is employee empowerment. So while employees are inherently focused on their salaries, they do value opportunities to grow, learn new skills, and participate at higher levels within the company. And an employee advocacy program is a really great way to empower employees to actually participate at these higher levels in the organization. And such programs can be as simple as providing a venue where employees can share thoughts and feelings about the organization, empowering them by giving them a louder voice in the discussions about the company's future. 2 very, very simple facts. And the third approach is recognition. Yeah, we mentioned it a short while ago. Once you have better informed your staff and you have empowered them to participate in the organization at these new levels, you must then recognize their efforts, Kevin. And we all know that the power of recognition goes a long way to motivating your employees, and obviously they'll then step in and do even more for the organization. Recognition, again, can be in multiple forms. It can be in the form of a simple gift card, company lunch, or time off in addition to what's already offered as company policy. The primary objective is that it must focus on offering a sense of appreciation and instilling a sense of purpose in the employee, Kevin.
Craig, and I mean, I could be wrong, but like you often find where corporations, I mean, they have this whole marketing division, and they don't effectively tap into that kind of messaging and how to drive sort of positivity and suggestion and motivation internally. Like it's almost like they forget that they have an internal market as much as they have an external market. Am I missing the buck here?
No, you're 100% correct. And that plays directly into the whole proposition around EVP and the employee value proposition, because you know, if you're looking at the 2 constructs, and we definitely going to have a show, or at least 2 consecutive shows, one really focusing on EVP and one focusing on EB, but you know, your employee brand is your message to the external market, but it's really about what are you doing to the internal audience. Okay.
Yeah.
It is absolutely vitally important to ensure that you're getting the same level of effort that you're trying to project externally to the internal audience. And the employee value proposition is about the connection, the communication, and really getting engagement and higher levels of participation in the organization. So yeah, EVP is you've hit it on the head, and definitely it's going to be a topic we're going to talk about in detail.
Fantastic, Craig. So I mean, if we take away today's like as we end today's show, what are the takeaway points that we can share with the listeners?
Kevin, thanks. So I want to reference another article I came across, this time on Forbes.com, one of my favorite sources. And the article's titled Why and How CMOs Should Champion Employee Engagement. The article was written by Mari Hatta, a Forbes Council member, and was published on the 18th of October 2022. The article focused on why employee engagement can be a business driver and what marketing leaders today can do to actually support their teams. And the article gives 6 strategies that chief marketing officers can actually use to drive engagement and build loyalty amongst employees. So the first point is create a positive onboarding experience. And it was great to see that right up front. Onboarding is an organization's chance to make a great first impression on new employees, and marketing leaders should go beyond the basic HR and IT overviews. And it's really great to see that point coming through. Marketing onboarding programs can include the likes of a review of brand guidelines, team objectives and priorities, recent top performing campaigns, as well as one-on-one meetings with key members. And throughout the onboarding process, managers can help employees develop their 30, 60, 90-day plans and brainstorm ways for them to achieve quick wins in the organization. The second point here is promote knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing is a way to exchange relevant information while helping team members feel valued. Information sharing sessions can teach new skills and insights, including how to be a better content editor, how a company launched a specific campaign, and how the introduction of a new product impacted on customer and the company. This allows managers and individual contributors to share their expertise and creates a growth mindset within the marketing organization that generates and enables new ideas. The third way the CMOs can help is find ways to connect remote teams. So the hybrid work environment definitely has made it difficult to forge these new connections, Kevin, and see teams bonding. Marketing leaders should schedule time and budget to boost both virtual and in-person team events. And as team members start getting to know each other on a personal level, they'll likely be more invested in collaboration and achieving the shared goals. Just want to have a water break. Fourth point is recognize outstanding performance. Picks up on the previous section where we spoke about recognition. Make a habit of celebrating wins and recognizing employees who go above and beyond. Whether it's managers sharing campaign results in an internal email or an email posting a new piece of content on LinkedIn, at least an employee posting a new piece of content on LinkedIn and tagging their teammates, a simple shout out definitely goes a long way, Kevin. The fifth point here is regularly gather employee feedback. Quarterly surveys definitely reveal what employees value and helps leaders identify where to focus their priorities and engagement efforts. 360-degree employee performance reviews obviously include feedback from employees, managers, direct reports and peers, and it provides an open, honest response mechanism, and it helps hold all employees accountable. As such, managers can then better understand employee strengths, working style, and define professional growth opportunities. And finally, point 6 here is help your team avoid burnout, probably one of the most important points. We saw and are currently seeing extreme levels of employee burnout post the pandemic. A way to help reduce this, Kevin, is by setting a single day aside a week for no meetings, whether in person or online, and just giving employees the time they need to actually get the work done during business hours so that they can actually close out their laptops at the end of the day and have some time for themselves. Also make a point to check in with your teams and give them opportunities to raise concerns in a private setting. Another way is to include engaging with small groups virtually to understand how these employees are feeling, whether their workload was manageable, and if they actually need help in prioritizing, Kevin. And those are some of the key simple takeaway points for today's show.
Fantastic. I love it. And that's championing employee engagement within your organization, guys. So if you want to find out more about this conversation, it's going to be live on ebizradio.com every Thursday. If you don't know that yet, check it out on ebizradio.com. And Craig, thank you for a really interesting conversation. I love that we're going to be chatting about this, and I love that we're going to be speaking about the value proposition and the employee value proposition. And I think that's some really interesting stuff that could come out of that conversation. Quote for today, you're not going to, I've never heard this quote, but I think it's one of the best ever. Like Albert Einstein, creativity is intelligence having fun.
Oh, beautiful.
I mean, like I think that's what you and I envision on a day-to-day basis.
That's brilliant.
We need to just take this out and create a TV show out of the bloody thing and make it happen.
Creativity is intelligence having fun. I'm actually going to make that my desktop.
You should do it.
Background. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And guys, yes, I'm just saying my book's arrived, and it will be out shortly on Amazon and Takealot. So I'll share those links with everyone when it is. Craig, thank you so much. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for being here and being part of my world. You're amazing, and I wouldn't be able to do it without you sitting right there.
Yeah, this is great. So we've developed a bloody good team here, Kevin. So yeah, looking forward to much more success and exciting parts of the journey ahead.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful one, and I'll chat to you soon. Thank you.
Chat next week. Thanks a lot. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.